experience in driving an old vehicle is so much more visceral. Like, the driving is the experience. It's not just about, getting to where you're going. I had worked and saved lawn mowing money to buy my first Subaru when I turned 16, and I never loved it. I bought it because, my friends all wanted Subarus. They were trendy at the time. It was just an old Subaru GL wagon. And one day I'm driving to church like 6 months later, and I passed this old black classic Mustang. But it was a year I'd never seen before. It was different than the ones that I'd seen in all the pictures growing up. And I locked up the brakes. I was like, what is that? It has a for sale sign in the window. It was for sale for about what I paid for the Subaru because it needed some engine work and stuff. And I'm like, oh. And that was when I had the earliest feeling of the importance of buying things you love. Like, I didn't love the Subaru. So it would break down, I needed to fix it, I need to spend money on it, and it hurt. You know what I mean? It hurt to work and save for something that I didn't love. But the Mustang, I instantly sold the Subaru, bought the Mustang. My dad helped me fix it a little bit, get it working, running right. And even though it was a pain in the butt and would break down and rear-wheel drive, didn't do well in the snow, made no sense living in Salt Lake City, Utah, but I loved it. It didn't hurt as bad working and saving and fixing and spending on something that I loved. The Mustang taught me engines. My dad was a mechanic in the Army, and he knew a lot about mechanics. I bought the Mustang knowing that it needed work done, and my dad had kind of said he'd help me. So I got all the stuff we thought we needed. I had all the right tools and everything gathered, and I stayed at home from school about a month or two after I bought it to get it running right, because it didn't run right. I was really upset when my dad said, "Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't help you today, I'm too busy." And I was like, I had stayed home from school, I had everything. And he came outside and kind of pointed at this and that, and I said, "Hey, take this off, do that, and good luck." And I was mad. And because I was mad, I started tearing into this thing under the hood. And basically, I've got to remove the heads of the motor to get them milled and basically do a top-end motor rebuild. And I had no idea what I was doing. I knew nothing. I knew nothing about engines, but I remember drawing everything out on a yellow pad. And I was kind of mad at my dad for not helping me. So I was kind of doing it out of spite, but I was drawing everything that I did. Remove this black hose from the spaceship looking thing, which now I know is the vacuum advance on a distributor, but I didn't know what that was at the time, right? I kind of labeled all the bolts in piles, and I drew pictures of everything that I didn't know what was what. And I even drew a diagram of the different spark plug wires going to the different places from the distributor. At the time, I didn't know the names of these things. And then, to my surprise, I got the heads off, had got them into the machine shop, and a week later got them back, having them milled down and put the whole thing back together using my own notes. I still remember so clearly when I turned that key and that Mustang motor fired up for the first time. And it was messy and it needed some tuning and adjusting, but I couldn't believe it worked, because I had just dismantled this whole top half of this motor, and I don't know, it just felt like impossible for this thing to just start working again. And when it fired up and was breathing, and it's like a living being, and I was so proud of myself. Through that process of dismantling and putting it back together and making it work, I basically understood how motors work. I learned the names of all those parts that I drew in my diagrams. And over time, in fact, I was paid a lot by 17 years old to be, I started as a shop boy at a boat shop, just as a part-time gig after school. And they quickly put me in charge of fixing their jet skis because they just didn't have a jet ski mechanic. And even though I didn't know anything about jet skis, I understood the basics of how motors work and electronics and all that stuff from this experience. And I was able to go even deeper. And I still use it today. Stuff breaks down on the side of the roads. People need help. I have all these old vehicles. But I've been obsessed with old vehicles because they make life richer for me. Even though they break down on the side of the road, I have a million stories of breakdowns and tows. And I've been on the side of the highway, crawled up inside of a Bronco just like this one, under the hood, replacing full-on motor parts because it broke down on a long road trip and I had to hitchhike into a Napa auto part. And these are vivid memories in my life. And even though they're inconvenient and cause me all sorts of problems, classic vehicles have just been a member of the family for me and have, I don't know, in a weird kind of masochistic way, they've made me tougher. You have to deal with stuff. You get cold driving home when you have no roof and no doors sometimes, and you got to kind of tough it out. I've been caught in the rain, just torrential downpour, with looking like an idiot at a stoplight, and everyone stared at me because there's nothing I can do about it. But that's okay. And you kind of learn to roll with it. Like, I like that living with these kind of self-imposed problems in my life have just taught me to deal with life. But I'm also more connected. Like, I love driving, especially these old Broncos. This black 1969 Coupe Mustang was special to me, and I had invested a lot of time and energy into it to make it decent. It got a huge upgrade because on my way to high school one morning, driving this thing, music cranked, all of a sudden I find myself spinning and landing sideways in my friend's driveway as I go to pick him up because I had been hit from behind by my junior high school Spanish teacher. And he was like Coke bottle glasses, probably legally blind, couldn't see. I had signaled and everything. He hit me and smashed the car, and I was like devastated. I was like, I get out, and I'm losing my mind. Both sides of my Mustang are munched. It's pinned between the mailbox and his car. But he didn't want to lose his license, so I still remember he's like, "Can we do this without insurance?" He ends up having to basically pay for the whole car to get rebody work, full front to back paint job. And so now I had this new looking 1969 Mustang. Had to go, through a bit of a turmoil to get it, but this thing became really precious to me, and it was like my only asset. I'm 16, 17 years old. It's the only thing I've invested in, and it was cool because it gained value. And that's one of the neatest things about these old cars is that, unlike a typical vehicle that you drive off the lot and it's worth half as much, these old cars, if you hang on to them and you take care of them, they can become more valuable. And now, the same Mustang, if I were to buy it today, I paid $2,700 for it back in 1995. Today, it would, even in that same condition, be $27,000, or maybe in the final spruced up condition today, probably 60, 70, 80,000. But I sold it. I sold it when I was 18 for about $5,000, so I doubled my money to pay for my mission, to go be a missionary for my church. And that in and of itself was an important event in my life, because I still remember so vividly watching my dual exhaust 302 powered, tire spinning, perfect black Mustang drive away, having sold it to someone on the classifieds to pay for my mission to go be a missionary in Taiwan, which is where I learned Chinese, which is what set me up for the career I have today. If you know the love sex story, like, my mission was formative, learning Chinese was formative, but I had to sacrifice that thing that I loved. And I want that for my kids, and it's tough because in this day and age, kids aren't always expected to buy their own cars. A lot of kids don't even want to drive. It's like a different day. But having to have bought my own car at a young age, having to have learned to fix it myself, learned to deal with problems myself on the side of the road, these are formative experiences in my life that I don't want to spare my kids from. I'm contemplating how to get them some of the same experiences, but keep them safe. My wife doesn't want them driving the classic vehicles because, one, they're valuable, but two, they've got metal dashboards and no airbags and not great safety-wise. But these classic vehicles have taught me a lot. I bought my first vintage Bronco when I was 21, 6 months home from being a missionary, because once again, I had to learn the same lesson. I came back home, needed a car, bought a Toyota truck I thought it was cool, but I didn't really love it, right? It was fine. It was practical, got good gas mileage, did all the things a truck can do, but it wasn't ever really me. My cousin had a truck, and I don't know, he kind of talked me into it. But once again, I saw on the side of the road a red and white Ford Bronco 1976 for sale, and it just spoke to me. And that's when man, you have to listen to your instincts. You have to listen to your gut, because even though it was a dumb move and it required all this work, and I had to sell the sensible Toyota, and get some breakdown old Ford Bronco, I loved it. And because I loved it, I was willing to wait all the tables I needed to pay for it. And it made me happy. Just getting in it and driving it to work made me happy. Now, I know for a lot of people, a car is just the means to an end, transportation. That's fine. You don't have to be a car person. But if you are a car person, then isn't it cool to enjoy just having to go run an annoying errand to pick something up if you can enjoy the drive? That's my point of view. And these old Broncos, no roof, no doors. You're driving home at night. You feel the coolness of like a little valley with trees around it. You're connected to the earth in like a different way than when you're just like in the bubble of a Honda Accord with perfect air conditioning and, a normal stereo. There's just a connection you actually have with the natural world when you're driving a roofless vehicle. I know that sounds really weird because it's an engine and you have exhaust and whatever, but I like that connection. I like the little bit of discomfort too. Like it's never the perfect temperature. I mean, you get moments where it's perfect and the sun is shining and the wind is, running through your hair, but a lot of times it's a little too hot, it's a little too cool. But again, that 20-minute drive to work makes you feel like you're doing something. Crank up the music. That's another thing. Like, it's awesome to listen to podcasts and ebooks. I'm big on books, as you know, and I do that if I'm driving one of my other vehicles. But and I try and drive these cars, I try and like use them as my daily. Like my goal is to not have to drive one of our newer vehicles if I can avoid it, just because the experience in driving an old vehicle is so much more visceral. Like the driving is the experience. It's not just about, getting to where you're going. It's weird to listen to a podcast, where everyone's listening around you. So I'm forced to turn on Spotify and listen to my favorite tunes. And I know that seems a bit vapid, but like that is my life happening to me, right? Like that is me living in the moment. These vintage vehicles are the experience. And I can be having the worst day ever, and my wife asks me to, go pick something up at the store, go do this or that. But it's never a problem. It's never a bother. In fact, I look forward, like, what can I do? What errand can I run just for an excuse to go drive? So look, they're not practical. They break down. They cost money. They do rise in value versus losing value, right? So they're not always the worst investment. But for me, they've added a little bit of spice to my life. Every chance I get to drive somewhere is an experience that lifts my soul a little bit. And I arrive happy, I arrive in a good mood. Look, it's not for everyone, but for me, I've found this thing that brings me a little bit of joy.